At the beginning of the year, one of the main goals that I set for myself was to paint and draw every single day. And one of my many goals within that was to cycle through mediums that I don't often explore. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about two very unlikely mediums that I found to work surprisingly well together. So thank you for joining me for today's sketchbook sessions while I bring out my soft pastels. Some of you may already know that I love soft pastels, but I don't really end up using it that much. Once or a couple of times a year is the most that I've used them, but every time that I have, I end up falling in love with them. And today we're going to be using my Arrtx soft pastel set. This is such a gorgeous set. It's full of bright pastel colors, which is a huge contrast to my Paul Rubens soft pastel set. That one has more earthy, deep tones, perfect for more realistic portraits, I would say. And while this one has more vibrant colors, I wanted to see how these brighter, lighter ones would work on my sketchbook. One of the many things I've always loved about soft pastels is how well they blend. And it's something that spans across all of the brands I've tried, is that soft pastels will always blend well. And that is the case for this sketch. It's honestly one of the best things about working with soft pastels is that they're so easy to work with each other. It's also really cool to see the colors blend into other colors. And after I lay them down on my paper, I very simply just use my fingers for them. I like that it doesn't require many different tools to work with them. And for this piece, I decided to try something a little bit different. So I went with a darker gray than the photo suggested for the initial values. And then I just built everything else around that. I chose the colors around this dark gray. The main goal was to make the skin tones feel a bit more translucent, even though I'm using very dark shades. Because just like how it always is with soft pastels, the more I blend it out with my fingers, the more the paper underneath will start to shine through. So this gave the skin an almost glowing, translucent look, which is exactly what I was hoping for this initial layer. And another thing with soft pastels is that this very first layers, they're always going to be the most fun because you get to play around, blend as much as you can, and experiment with the colors without really worrying too much about the final details. So instead of fighting myself to get those layers after perfect for detailing, I decided to just spray this first and only layer with the GOUACHE fixative that I have and just called it a day. I felt like I had a really good base to build up of for the future, and so I just left it like this for a few days and decided to work on something else the next day. So I was initially going to finish this with the Arrtx colored pencils just because I wanted to see how the art materials of the same brand will compare with each other. But at the time when I started the colored pencils, I was so frustrated with them that I stubbornly just decided to go back to my comfort medium, which is my gouache. I really had no idea how it would layer on top of the setting spray or even how the textures would look on top of the soft pastels, but I just knew that I didn't want to work with the colored pencils anymore. And I will talk more about them in a future video where I really review them formally. But for this time, I really liked the idea of cutting through the softness of the soft pastels with the sharp lines that I can get with a gouache. And can I just say I was really excited about how this one turned out. First of all, the gouache layered perfectly fine over the fixative. I don't know how it will work if I had added more layers of the soft pastels and if I had made the spray too thick, but with what I was working with, it just went incredibly well together. the gouache just lay down smoothly on top of that spray, and I just used my gouache to paint around the soft pastels to make them stand out more, so kind of like negative painting. But also, I didn't want to overpower the very hazy look that I got with the soft pastels with the heavy look of the gouache. So I made sure that I was only using the gouache to complement the first layer. And these two almost worked out too well. It almost looked eerie how soft her skin looked, especially because of how raw the gouache usually looks with the way I paint it. I don't do much blending with gouache, so the two next to each other almost looked eerie, and I was really intrigued by how well these two mediums worked together. I like that it's something I haven't done before, and that I ended up with a look that I am really impressed with. So I brought the same sharp lines and page breaks into painting her shirt. I was making sure I was only painting the highlights still, while leaving out the folds to remain as the soft pastels underneath. And somebody asked what I meant about page breaks. I'm not even sure if I'm naming it right, but it's basically what the paper underneath the painting looks like. So I would just make sure that it was breathing underneath and that it was still showing through, because if it's not, it would feel like the gouache was overpowering the painting, and that's really not what I want at all. At this point, I was really enjoying the process and was really excited for how it was going to look after. I had never really thought about these two mediums together, and I'm so happy that they actually complement each other really well. I am also really excited to use my soft pastels more because I haven't been using them that much, even though I enjoy it every time that I do. So the only uniting thing between these two mediums for this sketch was really the colors. I wanted the colors to strictly follow the photo, and while there are some very dark colors with the gouache, the very core of the color palette is still the same as the ones I used for the soft pastels. So I wanted there to be cool blues, soft greens, and maybe some pops of peach in there. So I used those mainly for the entire sketch. And when I was painting her face, I made sure I was strictly only painting around her features. I liked the soft pastel look so much of her skin that I wanted to leave most of it untouched. And as simple as that sounds, that was actually very challenging for me because I tend to overdo the dimensions, especially on the face. So to make sure I don't do that, I decided to just use my smallest detail brush. Because it's so small, I wasn't gonna be able to do more than just drawing in the smallest details with them. So I really limited myself to just that, and again, I just had to make sure that I was sticking to our color scheme. So the magic of this entire thing truly comes out in the end when we paint in the highlights. It's what really draws us to this drawing right away, and also the reason why we use a darker gray base for her skin, so that the whites on this final layer would pop and really unite the entire painting. I was really happy with how this one turned out. I'm so excited for more of these two combinations together. I hope you guys enjoyed this little video, and please don't forget that all of the reference photos that I use for my videos are on my reference photos board on Pinterest. The link to that will be in the description. You can also find my Patreon linked on there, where I do sketching and painting portrait tutorials every month. I have more than 2 years worth of tutorials stacked on there, which you can access forever if you get the membership. But yeah, that is it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you especially to my patrons for supporting me, and I will be seeing you guys again soon.